Hi, Brian Brennan with the Beacon, which is the Beach Erosion Authority for Clean Oceans and Nourishment. Here this morning, looking at the final clean out of the debris basin, up here on Foothill Road, just in Carpinteria. It's about 2.5 miles from the ocean. If you look down at the beach, you can see the palm trees down there. That's where the State Beach Park is. That's where the beautiful beaches of Carpinteria are. This right here is obviously they're clearing out. This is sand and sediment. The sediment before this debris basin was put here years ago, this flowed down to the ocean uninterrupted, which is what created our beaches. The sand and sediment, when it gets to the beach, it spends a lot of time in the sun. It bleaches, turns white, and that's where our sand comes from. What we're trying to do is just tell the story of how sand and sediments get to the ocean and what we've done in the last 50 years about how we've interrupted that sand and sediments that usually through the waterways and through the channels found their way naturally to the beaches. So what we have here is, this is the final end of, probably a 20 rain cycle. Didn't rain all 20 days, but off and on for about 22 days. And this debris basin was actually filled. Over the last 10, 12 days, the contractors have been up here and they've cleaned out a lot of the sand and sediment. We're looking at the far bank, which has big size boulders and rocks on it. Those rocks and boulders, over time, as they tumble down, they get smaller and smaller. And as you see down here at the foot of this, you can see the smaller cobble right down here at the very base of where the water's coming in. That sand and cobble, those cobbles were those rocks before. So what we're trying to do, those cobbles also are a building block of the beach. They absorb a lot of the energy of wave action, and the sand stays on top. So you have sand on top and cobble on the bottom. We need to figure out a better way than transporting it by hand or by truck or by whatever means. We need to get it back in the system naturally so that the Mother Nature can continue to bring that to the beaches. We've got to retrofit some of these debris basins just to let the sands and sediments and the small cobble go through, but obviously to stop the rocks, the boulders, and the things that cause a lot of havoc downstream. So that's what Beacon's working on, and we look forward to working with everybody in the community, environmental community, the permitting community, and the community as a whole to educate them about how our sand and sediments get to the beach in order that we can have a resilient shoreline to deal with sea level rise. What we're trying to do now through man-made is actually, over the last 10 days, is taking those cobble and taking these beach quality sediments down to the ocean in order that we can have sand on our beaches this summer. Here we are at the top of the Santa Monica debris basin, up above the previous basin. We're up here, right here at the edge of the hills. As you can see, looking back up into the hills, it's a very wide open watershed. We got a little bit of water still coming down from the rains over the last few days. Right here is the big, it's already been dug out, but this is actually where a lot of the rock, boulder, and cobble actually got deposited here. You have both these channels over here at the far end, which are raised up, which you can tell that it takes a lot of water to get down those channels. But right here you have this drain, which will actually take sand and sediment into the next basin. But what's falling out up here will be the cobble, the rocks, the boulders. You see some of those along the side. This has already been cleaned out, and what's appropriate, some of that you can see smaller cobble and rock along the embankment there. Where that's appropriate, that's been taken down to the ocean to be distributed on the beach to be the building block. But this is where that drain comes over and slows, as it widens, it slows water down. Sediments fall out because they're heavier, and they sit right here, and they've cleaned some of this out already. This, of course, continues to work down through the watershed to the basin below. And this is where the rock, sand, and sediments over the hundreds, thousands of years before we were on this coast, certainly the Chumash were watching all this wash down into the ocean to actually create beaches over time. So that's what we're trying to tell the story a little bit. Obviously, we want to make sure sand and sediments are taken down there safely. And I mean, just from making sure we're taking it from a watershed that's clean, natural hillside above. You see a little bit of the water in the rain that's left coming down the creek. It would come into this and the cobble would fall out here, the rock would fall out here. When it's really pushing and the rain's coming down, water moves around out and through those channels down to the next basin. This concrete tower here would allow sand and sediment and water to just go down to the next basin as the rock falls out. It's heavy here, and this right here moves it to the next basin down. Okay, well, here we are down at the Carpinteria salt marsh, about 25, 30 yards from the beach. Back here and a little bit in the wetlands. You see in the far distance there, you'll see the excavator up at the Santa Monica debris basin. And you can see coming down from there, that's where the sand, sediments, cobble, over time used to work their way down through down that hill, down that Santa Monica Creek, and into what is here is the salt marsh and the wetlands. It would wash into here, and then eventually through time and tidal flushing, we'd get sediments and cobble moving back out to the ocean. So as you can see, we're really, through man-made devices, we're trying to mimic nature. Ideally, it'd be nice to have that debris basin retrofitted so those sand and sediments could find their way down here naturally, and we wouldn't have to be intervening with man-made devices, which have greenhouse gases and things associated with them also.
We're part of nature, and as we destroy nature, we destroy ourselves. I never intended to be a businessman. I'm a dam buster.
We've been working for years to take this dam out. The reservoir behind it is only 4 feet deep. The water gets real warm, kills a lot of the life in the river.
When you take out a dam, that's a real victory. I mean, a concrete victory, so to speak. To do good, you actually have to do something.
No matter what you want to do, Members Project from American Express can help you take the first step at takepart.com.
We can see that we have sediments on the beach behind us. They're darker, as we said, up there at the hill, up at the debris basin. It was coming out. It's wet, it's damp, it's dark. But as these materials see more sunshine, they'll look like this white sand behind us. And it takes time to do that. It bleaches out eventually and assimilates into what's here. What we do see also is cobble back here on the beach. So we showed you the cobble where it collected up there in the debris basin, and it was delivered down here by truck and then put on the beach and then pushed into the tidal zone. So with me today is Mark Baylor. Mark is sea level rise and climate change consultant to advisor to Beacon. And Mark, I was just wondering if you could give us a little rundown on your perspective of sort of the ecosystem and what we're trying to recreate here.
Well, as you've said before, Brian, in the absence of the debris basins and the man-made improvements, all this material would be making its way to the beach as a function of these storm systems that come through and with pulses of rain actually produce all this sediment down to the beach. So we're really mimicking what nature would be doing in a safe and environmentally sound method as we can. As you'll note, the bigger boulders are being segregated out of the sediment that's actually going onto the beach. And in addition, the sediment's tested for both grain size and for any potential pollutants. So we're mimicking nature in the best way we can while we try to provide the most environmentally sound way to sustainably protect our beaches and to get the material actually on the beach as sand.
You know, when we get these opportunities, and there's short windows of opportunities, that could we pre-test? Could we have watersheds? Could we have debris basins already designated that the materials there are clean and it's viable for coming to the beach? And then when we have those opportunities, having a permit in place that allows us to deposit X amount of sediments here at the right time, and then also for that to be the sand and sediment size, all that to be somewhat within reason to be able to get that to the ocean. We want to have those conversations because we recognize it's one of the tools we're going to need as we go forward as the sea is rising, both protecting public and private spaces and protecting the public beaches and the habitat of beaches, I think is important. So trying to allow these sediments to get through, if we can do it the best, Mother Nature is the best way to do it, but if we can retrofit some of these debris basins that have clean sediments and the right things and be able to facilitate them getting to the beach easier, it's both, I think, environmentally sound, but also fiscally sound. And I think that's really what we need to do.
You know, the Carpinteria experience now may be a good model for how we develop a Beacon-sponsored long-term sediment management and beach nourishment plan for the Santa Barbara littoral cell. Because if we can ensure that it's safe and clean material and environmentally sound, and it does provide protection for a sustainable beach environment, then Beacon's role and mission will be accomplished. Beacon had permits for opportunistic beach sand, and now, as you know, under your leadership, Beacon needs to establish that program. So as the opportunities come up, as you say, the permits and the authorities are already in place, so actually we can take advantage of these opportunities and get the material to the beach. Unlike the Montecito experience, where a great deal of the material went to inland landfills many miles away from the coast, and we lost that opportunity.
And thank you, Mark, for those comments, and it's right on the money. I do want to point out here, while we're standing here, obviously most people would say, my God, what have you done to my beach? But I understand, like I said earlier, these are materials that are going to both get sorted by the ocean. The sand, this is actually, if you look closer, you'll see it as actually almost sand. And this really, the color's not white. It doesn't look like Miami Beach. Obviously, it doesn't look like Carpinteria Beach yet. But Carpinteria, the city of Carpinteria, has a webcam here at Ash Street, and over the next 4 to 6 to 8 to 10, 12 weeks, you can watch the color of this sand actually change on a daily basis. As the sun beats down and bleaches this, it'll turn white, just like you see these sands around us and up the coast here. And you see all this rock along the ocean. This is what happens when you don't have a beach, when you don't have anything to protect. These houses certainly are in danger as sea level rises, and that's why the rocks have been put in place. But the rocks, as we know, denudes a beach, and is not really one. It certainly protects the property, but it doesn't help the beach grow. So we want to be able to get the natural sediments so we don't have to rock a beach. So as you see, the revetment here is not an ideal situation for both beach habitat or for recreational. It certainly protects the private property. We understand that. But if we can do things in a more natural way, then that sand and sediments will move all the way down the coast from here, Carpinteria, through Ventura County, and eventually into the city of Port Hueneme, where it'll help them, and all the way down into the Magoo Canyon. Just want to let you know again that the Ash Street camera here for the city of Carpinteria is a beach cam. You can see, watch the sand and sediments change color over the next 6 to 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and as it gets to summertime, you'll see how wide this beach is. They've pushed sand and sediments up here as a berm, but this, after the Montecito debris flows and after the January 9th storm event, these beaches were wider than they've been since the 60s, both from natural sediment and some of the sediments we had to take out of the debris basins to make room for the debris basins that filled up again when the rains come. So again, this is an ongoing story. We hope to be involved, and again, want to encourage the environmental community, the community as a whole, to get educated and realize what it's going to take to be able to combat sea level rise and to make our coasts more resilient. As you can see here, we've got a berm. The sand has been pushed up to provide a natural barrier for the houses. And Carpinteria has been doing this since 1983. They've got a permit with the Coastal Commission. They come in here and did a beach management plan and said, you know what? We want to be able to push the sand up. Instead of having to throw rocks in front of these houses and lose all this beach, we're going to berm every year when November through March so that we can save that sand. The sand will then be pushed down to the beach later as the high tides and the winter storms subside, and then we'll see the beautiful beach. And again, Carpinteria, one of the world's safest beaches, will again take its place for visitors and residents alike. So I understand that the community and certainly even maybe visitors don't quite understand when they see heavy equipment on the beach and they see what appears to them to be mud and debris. But as you can see, there's no debris in here. They've taken beach quality cobble that's already been distributed out here because it's been here for thousands of years, redistributed that, have put the sediments on top of it. And over time, again, as I've said, you would see this turn white. Now, if somebody only gets one small snapshot and sees this here, I can understand why their concern is. But just want to remind them, this is sand and sediment. This is what turns into the white Miami Beach, so to speak, or the great haiku gardens of the Southern California.
Even in the hustle and noise of this modern world, we feel the pull of the forest, to walk under the canopy and feel transformed. National forests are essential to life. Majestic and grand, they clean our air, supply drinking water to millions, and provide homes to countless wildlife. They fuel our imaginations, inspiring us to think big, and now's the time to do just that. Fires and natural disasters devastate our forests each year. That's why we're replanting millions of new trees across the country. The Arbor Day Foundation needs your help. We've heard the call of the wild and we've answered. Scientists, foresters, volunteers, and members, together we can preserve and protect our heritage and legacy. We must act now so that the generations of today and tomorrow can continue to depend on our forests. Visit arborday.org. See how you can help.
We're still here at Ash Street. With us today is former mayor and present council member Fred Shaw. Earlier we were up at the debris basin showing where the sand and sediments were getting transported down, and now we're here on your beautiful beach.
When you look out here right now, most people look at this and they don't see it for what it really is. Those debris basins up there control a lot of what used to come down naturally to our beaches. And basically this is just a way for us to take some of that sediment that's collected and bring it down here, kind of helping nature along. What you see out here might look like mud to you, but it's really not. It's fairly fine-grained silt, which will become sand, and the cobble that's part of what you're seeing below, this is the kind of thing that creates a base for our beach. Otherwise, if we didn't have that cobble to hold the sand, we really wouldn't have a beach. If you're here in the winter, you see a berm over there and you see very little beach. But during the summer, you're going to see a beach that extends out like this. The only way that that's going to happen is if we have a good cobble base and if we're able to bring the sediment down there. Now, the debris basins have done what they're supposed to do, protecting our lands and housing and all that up there in the foothills. But the other thing they do that's not necessarily helpful for our beaches is they contain all of the fine sediment and silt and stuff that normally should be coming down to the beach to replenish it, so we have a nice wide stretch of beach during the summer like this. If you can imagine, just think ahead 3 months from now, and what you're seeing is mud. This is going to be sand. It wouldn't be sand if we didn't allow this to happen. And this is just our way of helping nature a little bit to move this process along.
Mother Nature has its way of sorting the fines and sediments, and the heavier grains of sand always stay on the beach. We're trying to mimic that through transportation and trying to transport it here, but we know that's a very expensive method, and also we want to make sure we're doing it safely.
This is actually mimicking Mother Nature and helping us keep our beach what Carpinteria is known for, which is world's safest beach.
I did want to say also the County of Santa Barbara has a ocean water testing program, as does the County of Ventura. So we'll be able to look at those tests and see the bacterial levels. I did want to say, generally speaking, bacterial levels are through the roof every time it rains when it washes out with any of this, without this going on. I'm not justifying that. I'm just saying there's a time where there's called the first flush of the streets and everything. The storm drains are carrying a lot of what we have as, dog residues, trash, garbage, carbon, all that stuff that's sitting in our storm drains ends up down on our beaches. We're trying to do a better job of collecting all that and keeping it up from getting to the ocean, but it does certainly spike those bacteria counts. Want to make sure that we are cross-referencing those bacteria counts with what's going down here on the beach, so we have a base to start from, so we can have a conversation with the community, the environmental community, and the permitting agencies.
That's very true. I mean, that's one of the things we have to remember when we look at these truck trips bringing this sediment down here, is this sediment is all being collected up in the catch basins before it ever gets down, where we get the agricultural runoff and we get the city street runoff, which is a lot of the pollutants that do come down, and you find when the bacterial levels spike here on the beach. A lot of those are naturally avoided just by the fact that all this dirt and sediment and silt is being gathered up there in the foothills before it ever gets down into the area that would pick up a lot of these bacteria.
That's right. And like I said, pre-testing, knowing that the watershed is clean up above it, pre-testing that area, also coming with the right cobble size, all those kind of things we want to have the conversation about with the public. Thank you again, Fred, for joining us here this morning.
Brian, I appreciate it. I appreciate the chance to let Carpinterians know kind of what is going on. And again, as we say, take a look at those beach cams and check it out, and you'll see the color of the sand and everything change as we move into summer, and it'll look a whole lot different than it does now.
And I know that your planning department in your city as a whole is going through a local coastal plan update. Also, importantly, is sea level rise. How do we adopt our shoreline and our beaches to a rising sea? To look at both opportunistic beach fill opportunities, again with clean, tested sediment that allows those sediments to be able to get down here to the beach and protect it like the berm's protecting these houses, as opposed to rocking the beach, which is protecting the houses, yes, but makes the beach go away and it takes away our beach access.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Fred. Well, again, I just wanted to say thank you and to our guests here, and also for everybody that's giving input on what's going on down here at the beach. Beacon, again, as I say, is a JPA. It's made up of the two counties of Santa Barbara and Ventura County, and the 6 coastal cities: Goleta, City of Santa Barbara, City of Carpinteria, City of Ventura, City of Oxnard, and the City of Port Hueneme. There's a river of sand that moves its way all the way down the coast, through all those cities, through both counties, to the city of Port Hueneme, and then goes into a canyon right off that, the Magoo Canyon. So those sand and sediments moving down the coast are what really are the natural, barriers to holding back the ocean. And we need to do a better job of keeping the sand on the beach. When the sand gets to the beach, figuring out how we keep it there. We need to decide what are going to be our recreational beaches and what are going to be our beaches for habitat, or commingling the two. But we need to have those discussions, and that's what Beacon's about. Beacon meets on the 3rd Friday of every other month at the Beacon website. That's www.beacon.ca.gov. beacon.ca.gov, and you'll be able to keep track of our meetings. The public is more than welcome, and we'd love to have you join us. The meetings take place here in the city of Carpinteria at their city council at meeting chambers at 9 o'clock in the morning. Love to have you come and be part of the discussion.